What is it you people want? I mean, we have the hottest guitar slinger in Texas. Is that enough for you? Welcome to Radically Rational, where we're bringing facts back into fashion. We're making simple sanity sexy again. And if I violate that rule, I will get verbally busted by an 8-year-old girl.
That's crazy.
Okay, so my name is Paul Alexander, and I'm in San Antonio at Game Day Media, one of the great podcast production houses in the country and the world. And my podcast partner, Lauri Pearson, is in the People's Republic of Austin on her work release program. But at least you're not caught in traffic at the moment.
I'm always caught in traffic. You could be sitting in your apartment and be caught in traffic in Austin.
Lauri and I, true confession time, we have extensive media backgrounds, but as far as I know, neither one of us has actually ever been incarcerated for it. But Lauri, would this be the truth? We've known each other a long time, and would it be accurate to say that music is just a foundational part of our friendship?
I think that's how we originally connected, or that was one of the surprise connections in our media time together when we, share time on the air. The way you and I talk about music is very similar. That it's part of our blood and our DNA. Yes.
Yeah, it's nutrition. I mean, it is food for the soul for sure. So this has been a fun experience because Lauri's got her musical taste. I have mine. There's a lot of overlap in those Venn diagrams, but we've each introduced each other to new music that we like. But one thing was for sure, there was never a doubt about our guest today. That was a unanimous vote. I'm going to say it again, Lauri. I know you don't like it when I use these superlatives and EST words and stuff like that. This is the best guitar slinger in Texas, Ruben V. Man, it's good to see you.
It's good to be seen. It really is. It's good to see people. It's right? Shake hands and hugs. Wow,
Well, this is really cool because this is our first formal podcast back as the country emerges from the pandemic. Not that we're totally out of the woods, but things are getting back to normal. And in examining that, we thought, well, let's find some kind of subject here that can illustrate this. And music is the obvious one because in the depths of the pandemic, you polled people, you ask them, what did you miss most? What's really driving you crazy? What is destroying your soul? And everybody had music, live music, either at the top or very near the top of that list.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. What's funny is that right before pandemic hit I was, telling my family, I could use 2 weeks to do nothing. I'd already done 200 and whatever show. In 2019, I did 282 shows, maybe 275, maybe.
How do you have fingers or vocal cords? 280 plus shows?
You just work. You have no idea how much you're working until you realize it's. And then in 2020 came, and it was February, wasn't it, when pandemic came in? I guess.
Yeah.
I'd already done. I think 37 shows.
Wow.
But I was exhausted, and I was just like, I sure would like a day off, like to do nothing, just to do nothing. You tell yourself it'd be great to do nothing, like take a week and go to the beach, which I don't really like anymore because I grew up there, but I wanted to go. And then so when the pandemic came, they said, okay, I was on a Wednesday, and they said, hey guys, it's official. It's going to be 14 days of no music. Pandemic is something called COVID is here, and you're going to have 14 days off, which I took as, wow, woo.
and just in time.
Get on my motorcycle and do nothing for 14 days, which sounded great until it turned into 15 and 16.
Yeah.
300. And, what did it end up being now? What was the total of,
That's a
year, almost a year and a half?
Essentially 15 months, yeah. Or maybe a little bit more. And again, we're all hoping that we don't fall right back in the soup, but that's another topic for another time. So, Ruben, I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a long time, but Lauri, you and Ruben go way back.
Oh man, do we ever. Ruben has always been a rock star, for the record. What year was it, Ruben, when we met? 92?
Was it right about
91?
Yeah, right there, right.
91, 92. And we were both working at Sound Warehouse. I started at the one on Evers, and then you were on San Pedro. Is that accurate? Or were you, okay. And then somehow or another I got I can't remember, but that's how we met up.
Yeah. I think I had just transferred over to Evers. Ron Young,
Okay.
Ron Young wanted me over there, so I came over there, and then you started there with us. Yeah, with Billy.
Yeah, and our third compadre, Bill White, otherwise known as Elvis. Yeah, the three of us were like the Three Musketeers. We went to Chris Madrid's and driving around and listening to rock and roll. And Ruben and I were roommates way back.
Way back in the day.
Way back.
She had a cat, and I was allergic.
Yeah, I have terrible feline allergies. I really do. And I remember my first girlfriend back in high school. She really thought that she brought tears to my eyes, but it was just that damn cat.
It was, it's mean, but I should have known. I should have known my first marriage was over when my wife brings home a cat, knowing I'm allergic. I'm like, well, that's a good sign right there. That it's. I brought home this beautiful cat. I'm allergic. Yeah.
But I gotta add to that. Back to your question, Paul. Ruben and I have known each other for a very long time. And not only has he always been an amazing musician and just a heart and soul for music, but he's also been an amazing music collector. And when we were roommates, I used to pilfer through his CD collection and make mixtapes, and I still have them. I mean, he's got an amazing love. He loves all kinds of music. I mean, not just the blues, but your sweet spot is the blues, but your love for music just goes across all the genres.
Yeah,
and that makes you an amazing musician and artist.
Thank you.
We admire your passion so much. I mean, his technical artistry is amazing, and we're going to give you some examples of that. But more than that, I know this is kind of a schmaltzy song, but I thought about this morning because knew we were going to have the pleasure of talking to you, and it's this passion that really distinguishes you. There was that line from that schmaltzy song by Brad, Guitar Man, he's just got to find another place to play. Man, that's you. That's you.
And I don't know how that started with me. I mean, I remember the day I wanted to play music. I remember exactly the day that it hit me. But ever since then, it's been nonstop. You're right. It's nutrition. I need it, and a year and a half without it really drove me nuts.
You do some very interesting music on social media, which I follow, and you describe this almost as a communion thing. That it's nutrition for the audience, but it's nutrition for you too.
Yes.
In returning to live gigging, what kind of joy have you seen from your audience? And I think you're right. We were talking before the show started. We're all dinged here. We're all damaged. Some people just don't realize it yet.
Yeah, and they don't want to realize it. They want to pretend they're unscathed, and it's not bothering them. But until you sit there with a crowd again, like my first show back was unbelievable. I mean, you just hooked me up to the IV, and I was like, oh my God, that's what was missing. You start to lose your color, you start to lose your feel, and you gain a whole lot of weight when you're sitting at home doing nothing.
Oh man, I don't know what you're talking about. I got no idea.
I had COVID 21, boy. 21 pounds of what is that? Because you don't realize lifting gear every day, lifting in and out of your truck, getting at, stuff you dancing around the stage for 3 hours. Everything you're used to doing was suddenly taken away. But yeah, to see the crowd has been great. I mean, they're responsive. Go ahead.
It froze. Sorry, my stream froze for a second. So I missed after the laugh about gaining weight.
Okay, we can pick it up from there.
Well,
maybe we wanted to change the subject.
I know. Well, I think I shared this with you, Paul. At the very beginning of this, the phrase that was going around is everybody's going to come out of COVID either a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk. And I think that is accurate.
Yeah.
I may have hit the trifecta. I don't know. We'll just have to see how this plays out. You are so wonderful in every genre, and I want to ask you about this a couple of times, a couple of things regarding that. But I never knew till you told me this morning. I mean, you're primarily a wonderful blues rock guitarist, but you didn't start out in that genre, and then all of a sudden you had this life-changing experience.
Yeah.
And man, look at you now. That was good. Tell us what happened.
Yeah.
I was a heavy metal guy. I was rock and roll, heavy metal, hard rock, heavy metal. And when I was a kid, that's what we did. I've been in one cover band my whole life. I don't know any other people's songs. I was never really good at it. And I joined this cover band, and I had to learn all these songs. And we did one show, and I was like, yeah, that was just unfulfilling for me. It didn't do anything for me. It's like, well, Van Halen isn't going to play my song. Why should I play his song? And I know it's stupid, but that's just the way I thought. So I quit that band and I started writing my own stuff. And everybody in town was like, "What are you doing? That's not what people do around here." I was like, "Yeah, well, that's what I want to do." And I was a kid. I was, and I had in mind, I found people that thought the same as me. They thought I was crazy. Like, we should be doing some Judas Priest and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So I took a year and I made a band and we formed it and we had a show down, just like the old days where you do the moves and everything. We wrote everything. And we got signed and it was a lot of fun. But after all that happened, my bass player got killed. And it was the first real death in my life that affected me that way. My grandpa had passed, but I didn't really know him. So I knew he was my grandpa and he passed. And it hit me hard, but not like my best friend who I just saw the night before. And so once he got shot, it put me in a horrible place in mind. And I became a horrible drunken jerk to everybody. And then a year later, I go to South Padre to see, I don't know who it was. I guess my girlfriend at the time wanted to see Outfield or one of those bands from the era, the 80s. And the opening act was this guy in a red three-piece red velvet suit with a big hat and a feather in it. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? It's 1,000 degrees outside, and he's in a red three-piece velvet suit. But he starts playing, and I little by little sober up, and it's one of those moments in my life that I go back, oh my God, who is this guy, and what is this? And half the people loved him, half the people hated him. And it was Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I didn't know who that was, I didn't know what it was, because in the rock and roll world, blues is either AC/DC or UFO, or Led Zeppelin. I didn't know what real blues was till I saw this guy, and it changed my life. And I told my girlfriend at the time, I said, I want to do that. She's like, why? It's horrible. I'm like, no. This is the first time I heard guitar that hit me that way, because I didn't play for a year. I didn't even want to look at a guitar. I was mad at God. I was mad at the world for taking somebody that close to me. And that's it. We drove off, and we stopped in a record store in, Brownsville, I guess it was. And I asked the local record girl, I'm like, there's this guy, I just saw him play. And she's like, I don't know, oh my God. But they had a poster on the wall, and it had his name. I said, this guy right here, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Double Trouble, whoever that is. And I found the CD, and I changed my life. I moved to Austin and then San Antonio, Austin, San Antonio for the past 35 years, back and forth.
And it tapped into your soul and vice versa.
And then, we talked about this earlier. MTV was still big back. Y'all remember MTV? Yeah. And the smoothest guy comes on the screen.
I even remember M on MTV.
So the smoothest guy comes on talking about, sleeping with the lady next door. And I'm like, who is this guy? Why is he so cool? And it was Robert Cray. And I was like, oh my God. That was just that guy, right? Him and Stevie saved my life. It made me go in a direction I never thought I'd go. But it spoke to me differently than everything else.
Yeah, she was right next door, and I'm such a strong persuader.
I'm a strong persuader, man. Like, I'm smooth, boy. And so that was it. I wanted to do that. I want to be, Robert Cray when I grow up. To this day, I want to be Robert Cray when I grow up,
I'm sure that he would be honored by that aspiration for sure. And as we both know, he is such a nice and gracious
incredible
man.
Guy. What a sweetheart.
Our guest is the best guitar slinger in Texas, Ruben V. I will stand by that statement. And we were talking about different musical genres. And again, I follow you on social media, and you've really had it with people who think that musicians should stick with one genre, and how dare you get outside your little sandbox and stuff like that. I just don't get it. Have you ever been told? Just
all the time.
Stay there and do this and don't deviate.
Well, that's probably why I never got the level I wanted, because I remember being approached by a record label. They were like, well, what are you? Like, you're too rock for blues, you're too blues for rock, and you're too rock and blues for country. And I don't know what you want to be. Like, they don't, and it's maybe because, like Lauri, Lauri and I worked at record stores. I didn't want to be, and I like the people like Steve Earle, I like people like Bruce Springsteen, people who just said, this is me, either like me. But I'd say this all the time. Aerosmith didn't want to be Judas Priest didn't want to be Bruce Springsteen, and Bruce Springsteen definitely didn't want to be Michael Jackson. You had your own voice, and that's what I always wanted. I wanted my own voice, and now that I have it, they still go, what are you? I mean, you're not Santana, but you're not Stevie Ray Vaughan, but you're not Robert Cray, and you're not Bruce Springsteen, so where do I put you? And I realized last night,
in the corner by yourself.
Yeah, well, you would think it'd be my own thing. And Laura and I have talked about this, several times, because I'll have to call her sometimes, like, what do you think? And she's like, be you, for goodness sake. But it's
good
really
advice.
hard, because nobody wants that anymore. I think you're talking about the post I wrote about the new John Mayer song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he put out this song, and it's very 80s. So you can tell he's having, but then again, John Mayer can do whatever he wants, and people are going to buy it anyway. It doesn't matter. When you get to that, place in a career, you do what you want because you've done what people wanted. You've done what the record labels wanted. Now it's time for you to do what you want. And he's having fun. So the song comes out, it reminds me of the Toto stuff. It reminds me of the early Clapton stuff. But I think that's what he's doing because he wants to reinvent. If you don't reinvent, you can't stay relevant at all.
This is the kind of thing that Lauri and I talk about really all the time.
Yeah.
Deep down, who are you really trying to please with your music? And this is where I'm coming from. I've heard the argument, this artist is too self-indulgent. I think my position is that all real art is self-indulgent.
Yeah.
That the artist has to be trying to please himself or herself, and if somebody else gets it, that's right. But if it's just a commercial commodity, it's not art, it's deodorant.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, you have to sing this song the rest of your life. The artist has to play that we talked about earlier, the artist you were talking about earlier, who didn't want to play their hit song. Because after a while, you're like, man, that's really not who I wanted to be. But they made me do it, and you do it, and you make the money, but then you feel like, what's his name, Judas, where it's like, I don't want the money here, take it back. I didn't really want to do that.
Cleanse me.
But it's too late. It's already out there. Now you got to be that guy the rest of your life. So when you become, even those guys who write funny songs, when you become the funny songwriter, people can't take you. If you do a beautiful ballad that means something, people go, yeah, don't do that. Be the funny guy, Be the funny guy. They just want you to be the guy that they wanted to. I don't know. It's hard. I'm the wrong guy to ask because I have too many opinions on that. And if you follow me on social media, which I'm sorry that you do because I talk too much.
Are you kidding? It's the most entertaining part of my day.
I make half my people happy and half my people mad because.
And that's how you know you're doing it right. That's exactly the example you gave of Stevie when you first saw him. Half the audience loved him, half the audience hated him. And if you're trying to make everybody happy, you're not an artist.
I can't. Yeah. Well, I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yes.
You did. Yeah.
But that's the truth of it. Is that you do. You're not going to make everybody happy at the end of the day. It's not going to happen because somebody's out there going, yeah, well, he's not Eric Clapton. Well, who?
Half the people don't like Eric Clapton. People call him a hack. Some people.
You hear it. You absolutely do. So, it's like that old Rick Nelson line, you got to please yourself.
Yeah.
You absolutely
do.
But
even that becomes hard because you don't know what yourself is after a while.
Oh, I think you're figuring this out. I'm pretty confident. Lauri and I both had the pleasure of seeing you in acoustic sets. And, of course, you plug that thing in, and you're in a different solar system. But there just happens to be an acoustic guitar
I saw that.
there behind you. What makes you want to do different shows, and what are you thinking about when you schedule an acoustic set, an acoustic show, and what are you thinking about when you just plug that thing in?
I have fought the battle of songwriter and guitar hero for 30 years. Because the songwriter in me wants to be Bruce Springsteen, but the guitar player in me wants to be Steve Ray Vaughan and Robert Cray and people like that, Santana. But so I have fought those battles. So when I do get called to a songwriter session, it's like people go, "Oh wow, I didn't know you did such a beautiful ballad. Like, where did that come from?" It's like, well, I don't just sling the guitar, but you do fight it. So I don't know. It happens to be guitar here. Paul asked me, Lauri, he goes, did you bring your guitar? I was like, no, I forgot.
But this is how cool John Largent is. The owner of this place where we do this podcast, this guy is so adaptable. Oh, I got a guitar, man. Just knock yourself out.
Nice.
That's Robert Cray right there.
Man, that is straight from your soul to your fingers. Nothing gets in the way there.
I remember the only reason I play guitar is a quick piece. I don't know how much time we have, but my brother was playing a guitar in a band, and we were all three of us shared a room. There's three brothers, and my brother was trying to do. I don't even know what the lick was. It could have just been, and all night long, and we're all three sitting, and I'm in bed. My other brother's in bed. And he's sitting up there just going. Like it just didn't come out.
It didn't connect.
Right? I mean, he was great. He's a great guitar to this day, but it was something. And I'm like, oh my God, I get out of bed, and I think he just does this. And I gave it back to him, and he punched me in the head. And I think at that moment I said, I want to play guitar because why did I hear it? how come I could do that? I didn't know I could even. I never played guitar till that moment, and that was it. And that from that point on, I was like, maybe I should play guitar because I heard it that way. And so I don't know.
I'm sure glad it turned out that way. And you talk about all these gigs that you play. I mean, in a minute, I could talk to you for the next 45 hours, but we're going to have to wrap it up in a minute because you're on your way to a gig tonight that is approximately 200 miles away.
Yeah, because that's what I do. I want to drive right back because I got to play here in town tomorrow. Then I got to play, Saturday night in Candlelight. It's just what I don't know anything else. So when they took that away, I didn't know who I was. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think you do. I used to say all the time, well, maybe I'll just quit and find something else.
Well, real briefly, you did find some other things because you needed to keep your family afloat, and it says a lot about who you are as a person.
Well, that job affected me way more than I expected it to. I didn't think it'd have the effect that it did. I mean, But you were finding other things to do just to support your family. Oh, you have to. You have to. I mean, I had one lady, I delivered medications to her house, and she looked at me, she goes, "Can you pull your mask down?" I was like, "Well, yeah." She goes, "Oh my God, it's you. It's Ruben V. You're Ruben V." I was like, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I got, wife, kids, mortgage, and college for my daughter. I got to make this happen." She goes, "You should be embarrassed. This is stupid for you. This is embarrassing. I thought you were a star. Just leave." And she closed the door in my face.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens.
Her address.
People have, perceptions. Perception's easy. People think, like most of my friends who are famous during this, they all lost their jobs. I was at a show one time, and they were discussing, politics and the pipeline and all this stuff. And I'd had a couple shots of tequila and decided to say something on the microphone and said, I know we're angry about the pipeline. I know we're angry about politics. I said, let's talk about the first time you got kissed was to a song. Your wedding was to a song. Your first dance, everything was to music. Everything in your life has been a song to it. I said, but you're not mad about us. Every musician I know in the world, all my friends around the world lost their jobs. But people think it's here, it's small town, it's just San Antonio. We're being affected. No, it's the world. I have very famous friends that call me like, "Hey, dude, you're actually gigging. Like, how do you gig? How do you get to gig?" And they're famous. Do you need musicians? I'll come down and fly. I'm like, dude, you're famous. Why do you want to come play with me? Because you're working, and I'm not. I have nothing. And so I think they don't realize the impact that I had on every musician I know was out of work. We had nothing to do, nowhere to go. And when you come back to that reality of what musicians make as opposed to what people, the working class make, you have no idea. I had no idea what people made. It'd been 30 years since I had a job, 32 years.
Quick and final question. Post-pandemic now, we hope this is post-pandemic. Are you whole again, and do you think your audiences are whole again?
No, I think I'll forever be broken for this. But I'm grateful for it because it showed me a side of me that I didn't even know existed anymore. Because you get locked up in your own world. Music is very, what is that I was saying? My dad said it and everybody else says it. I want to grow up and be a musician. My dad says, you can't pick one. Just pick one. You can't grow up and be a musician. And I've seen T-shirts of it because I'm sure my dad read it like everybody else, but it's true. We live in a world where it's just, I'm going to be forever 23, 25 years old. In my mind, I don't move like that. I don't look like that anymore. But in my mind, I'm that 25-year-old kid who said, okay, let's go travel the world now and play music.
Well, maybe the most radically rational thing we've done on this show is to declare you the hottest guitar slinger in Texas because, no, you are absolutely that. And we're just, Lauri and I both think the world of you musically and personally for sure, and we're just so honored you're here. And again, I think it's cool that you're going to go hop in the ride, drive 200 miles, and burn that place down tonight. So this is what we're going to do. You heard Ruben play a little bit acoustically a minute ago, and that's wonderful. But then he plugs that thing in, and we're talking about an entirely different universe. So as we bid farewell to Ruben and tell him thank you, everybody, check this out.
Step aside so I can see. Trouble is coming, you better get running, 'cause trouble's coming after me. Well, she's trouble, yeah. Can't deny she's trouble.
My goodness, that was the amazing Ruben V. We thank you for listening to Radically Rational, and we invite you to visit our website at radicallyrational.com. And just resetting, we're all about bringing facts back into fashion and making simple sanity sexy again. So we got a musical doubleheader today. You just heard Ruben V, who is just completely, it's so beautiful to watch his focus, just completely tunnel vision about his music. And then we have another musical guest who clearly has attention span problems. His name is Hector Saldana, and in full disclosure here, I have known Hector Saldana as an all-city football offensive lineman, and I will tell you from having watched him that if he was supposed to block you, you got blocked. Then I have known him as a scholar. Then I have known him as an award-winning journalist, primarily with the San Antonio Express-News for decades and decades and decades. And now he's in charge of a wonderful Texas music collection that we're going to talk about in a minute. But oh, by the way, when he's not doing any of those things, he is the front man for the iconic Texas band, the Crayolas, that's now undergoing this unbelievable universal renaissance. Dude, you must be doing something right. Hector, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here. Thank you, Lauri. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, great to see you.
I mean, what can you say? Rock and roll never dies, and you know, with the Crayolas in particular, you know, it's my brother's in the band. He's the drummer. You know, my kids are in the group now, and it really is those records that we made back, you know, in the 70s. It really is that is our story. You know, we were, you know, and our story was that we were very, very young back then, and we're still very, very young in our own way.
So now the term then is savage young Crayolas. I kind of like the savage part. And I hope I'm not going to embarrass you when I say this story. I have seen the savage side of savage young Crayolas. I had the pleasure of watching you at a very small venue one night several decades ago. And there was this guy that was being unbelievably obnoxious and really was maybe posing a danger to other people. And all I can tell you is that starting with your brother, David, who came just tearing off his drum kit, that dude paid a price. Savage young Crayolas.
Yeah, one of our members, I think, was making goo-goo eyes at someone's girlfriend, and then we were doing an encore. I remember at Tabasco Beach. I still remember.
That's exactly right.
Avenue B, when there was no Avenue B really, and we're playing a song, and there was a big window behind us, and I hear my brother kind of missing the beat. I look around, he's looking behind him, and he sees Doug getting the holy hell beat out of it. So my brother jumped out of the bed. We put our instruments down, just ran out into the parking lot and got it on.
Well, your brother did a paradiddle on that guy's head. I can tell you this. And the beat was not dragging. I mean, he was right there in the pocket. There's no question about that. Our guest is the amazing Hector Saldana. Lauri and I are very, very proud to call him a friend for a long time. And, okay, I was making jocular reference to all these various things you've done.
Right.
Some people would almost accuse you of not committing to something. Do you get that kind of criticism? And if you do, how do you respond to it?
Yeah, no, I really don't get that because I'm usually older than anybody in the room, and, you know, sort of raise the median age just by walking in. But the thing is, you know, the Crayolas, for example, I mean, started when we were teenagers. So, I mean, we were playing bars, you know, and dives beginning in 1975. So I know a lot about music from that angle. And then I know it from the other side of the fence where, you know, as you mentioned, you know, almost 30 years writing about music, you know. So when you're a musician, you're an advocate for other musicians. You're hanging out, and you don't really sort of realize it then because you're just a kid, you know, but you really are sort of the face of that music scene, kind of. You're a small part of it. You know, you're part of a tapestry, right? And then when you're a journalist, as you know, you are sort of delving into what makes people like Ruben V tick, you know, and seeing how they fit into that tapestry, and hopefully some of the things that, say, the Crayolas part of my life, and even the football stuff, you draw on that. And also, you know, I'm a father and a grandfather. So, you know, you draw on all these sort of things when you're I guess, asking your questions or having some, it's all about perspective. Even the songs, are from a point of view, right? And so then as a journalist, I was very proud to do that and worked my ass off. And then when the opportunity came up to work at the Whitliff Collections there at Texas State University, and I was actually chosen. I mean, for me, it's really more a part of a continuum.
Well, tell everybody what that's about, because that's absolutely fascinating, and that is an incredible position for which you are uniquely qualified.
Yeah. Well, thank you. What it is, it's the museum and archive repository at Texas State University. It's world renowned for its writers collection. It's unbelievable. The Southwest Writers Collection, which is headed by Steve Davis. He's the curator there. So, and by that, I mean, we have people like John Graves and Sandra Cisneros and Sam Shepard and, John Reschi and Larry McMurtry have their archives. So the list goes on and on. And so I oversee the music part of that, the Texas music collections at the Whitliff Collection. So,
and it's like you've been preparing yourself for that job your entire life.
Sort of, yes. But you do quickly realize that, first of all, just like with journalism, you can, even beyond journalism, you can do a really deep dive, say, when you're looking, going through collections. That, and I work with a tremendous team of archivists. So, when you're holding in your hand, unpublished lyrics by Willie Nelson, or even the original scrawled out notes to On the Road Again, which Bill Whitliff had asked him to write for him. When you are opening a letter that Jerry Jeff Walker wrote to his grandmother in 1967, thanking her for the $50 she sent him because he was broke and it helped him fix an amp, and also that he thinks he wrote a good song called Mr. Bojangles. And you're reading that, you get chills, I mean, he was not Jerry Jeff Walker yet, he hadn't even settled on that name. So, you realize, whoa, just to be a part of that is a privilege, and also that at the end of the day, someone, I'm the first music curator they ever had. So at some point, someone else will have that responsibility. But I'm proud to be part of that. Again, I see it more as a continuum. The criticisms I've received have been for different reasons. They've been many, but usually it's not because I've done multiple things. It's usually I've done just one thing badly.
Just not true. Laura, you jealous? Because you'd be the kind of person that would just love that position and love being involved in that kind of research. That's very much your thing.
Confidentially speaking, I would be that fangirl that would just want to touch everything and look at everything and like smell it. And every story you just told, I was getting chills, just like you said. I can't even imagine those amazing magical artifacts that you get to just survey, collect, assess, identify, and the history behind it. That's why you're so perfect for that position. How amazing each of those pieces are.
Well, and the true beauty of it is that the Whitliff Collections is opened every day to the public. We're lucky as a archive, library and repository that we have so much gallery space. I mean, we have all just under a football field worth of presentation space and offices. Wow. So it's big. We're on the top floor of the Alkek Library on the campus of Texas State University. If you want to get your hands, say if you're doing research, we serve a lot of authors and documentary filmmakers, but we're open to the public. Anybody can make a reservation. They can look at the finding guides, find a particular item or a box, and we will pull it out. You can, you have I don't want to say you have full access in a very controlled space. It has to be, because we have to be very protective of those materials. But our mission is really to preserve the arts of Texas and the Southwest, and the public is a big part of that. To let them know what we have, and that really is a big part of my job, just letting people know what the Whitliff Collections is and where we are and sort of what our mission is. That's kind of a constant.
And it is a beautiful place for sure. Our guest here on Radically Rational is the amazing, eclectic Hector Saldana, athlete, journalist, librarian, music curator, and oh, by the way, frontman for the Crayolas. And we talked about you having a global renaissance. That's not an overstatement. I mean, you guys just got a review by Ben Fong Torres, and my position has always been, once a reviewer or a critic with a hyphenated last name reviews you, you have made it.
We're in, baby.
Yeah.
We're in. Yeah. Well, we were very lucky. I mean, part of the Crayola's appeal, I think, is that, first of all, that we were back in the day very, very young, teenagers, and, you could, now from the perspective of time, you realize, well, we were these, kind of cute young guys, and, you could blow them off or whatever. But the Crayolas, I don't think we could have the resurgence we're having and have had over the last, now almost 15 years, had it not been something good in the beginning, And then we sort of had a 2.0 sort of period when we made a record with Augie Myers called Little Fox. He had a song that he'd written for the Sir Douglas Quintet.
And that record got hot.
Oh, yeah, because my mom wrote the Spanish words for it. So we did a bilingual, and it was unbelievable. So suddenly we were at South by Southwest and on satellite radio and at the Texas State Fair on the main stage and all these sort of things. And then Augie produced an album for us. And the parts, and played together. Now, suddenly we're making records with Flaco Jimenez and the Tex Maniacs. And then suddenly I'm writing I was always the songwriter, but now I'm writing a lot of new songs, and they're getting, people are saying nice things about them, and you're not going to get in the way. So, like if NPR, all things considered, wants to do something, fine. If the Washington Post says you're this, whatever. I don't get in the way of that. They can say whatever they want, But
when you made it to Radically Rational,
yeah,
I mean, come on.
There you go. But the fun is in making the music with my brother now, my kids, and with the friends that I've the musicians I've made records with. I've jammed with Ruben. I mean, there's like I said, it's sort of part of a continuum and a family. You sort of you feel that more. So I think I appreciate it more now, but I would just tell anybody, no matter what their dream is, whether it's music, the arts, whatever, sports, perseverance is a big part of it, And like Savage Young Crayolas is really a archival collection release that was really started because before the pandemic, because one of the original members had died, and so I wanted to sort of honor Barry Smith and that time period. And lo and behold, all of a sudden Sirius XM is playing one of the tracks that we used to play at the Warehouse Club in 1975. It's really crazy, I mean, and not just playing it a little bit, playing it a lot. So, you go with the flow. That's what my advice has always been, especially in the Crayolas 2.0 period, which began around 2007. You just kind of go with the flow and try to find, try to express yourself, but then just have fun doing it. If you're not having fun, I just wouldn't do it.
I love what you said about perseverance, because I have come to regard that as the leading human virtue. Everything else, I think, ultimately flows from that. Hey, I wish we had like 6 hours to talk about this topic.
Sure.
And it's the kind of thing that Lauri and I talk about all the time. There are cities that have a particular musical sound. Now, some cities think they do, but they really don't. But clearly, there is a San Antonio sound.
Yes.
Just like there is a Philadelphia sound. To a much greater extent than people realize, there is absolutely a Houston sound. But tell me how the Crayolas reflect the San Antonio sound.
Well, we fit into a part of that sound which owes a big debt to the Royal Jesters, the Sir Douglas Quintet, Sonny and the Sunliners, which is a era of music from the late 50s through the 60s into the early 70s that was sort of a combination of doo-wop with a bit of a Mexican sound, but it really was this sort of hybrid sound, and also much informed, the way it actually sounds, by Chicano kids getting into R&B. So, so it was, again, teenagers wanting to express themselves it was young Chicanos, really, though they loved Conjunto, bringing they wanted in on the Elvis thing too, and so that spin on it, and then so you add those horns and the black sound and that Chicano thing, and you do get a certain vibe that is a San Antonio sound. But that San Antonio sound owes a tremendous debt to. You go back to the late 20s and early 30s. Lydia Mendoza makes her first record as a teenager in San Antonio in 1934, Mal Hombre. And here you have a woman that is playing only a 12-string guitar. And this is before even Flaco Jimenez's father's making records, or even before Conjunto records are really, really being made. And you have this young woman, sort of like a lead belly, almost Bob Dylan kind of person, and so a lot of times, again, with rock and roll, memories are short, but we owe a huge debt to like what the sound of San Antonio was, which was a lot of sort of a trio sound, very romantic. But then you had Lydia Mendoza, who was very rustic and earthy, and then you have people like Flaco Jimenez's father, Santiago Jimenez Senior, and Narciso Martinez in the Valley. Now, they've listened to German music, but now they're adding their take with the accordion. So suddenly that's when the accordion comes in, and that really can only happen here if you have that huge German, Czech, and Polish population nearby, in the surrounding areas. So the Crayolas are just a little speck in all that,
But they have carved out their unique niche in the San Antonio sound.
Yeah, I think where we might, where our contribution might have been is like where, that doo-wop and 50s thing that was happening in the mid-60s, that sort of San Antonio sound. I think we kind of, our edge was always more power pop and garage rock and Beatle-y, so we might have added a little Brit pop spin to it, things.
Got to ask you this question, and Lauri's going to anticipate this. I've got this thing. I'm really academically fascinated and spiritually fascinated by just these bursts of greatness. Essentially, what I'm talking about is when people are in the zone,
right? Like
a quarterback who can't miss,
right? Like
a 197 hitter who goes 8 for 9 in a doubleheader with 3 home runs, with a guy who hits, 14 three-pointers in a row, or what I call the Bob Beeman phenomenon. Okay, right. Guy just jumps clear past the pit. Lauri's an adrenaline junkie. I'm an adrenaline junkie. To a large extent, you are too. Right. I don't mean to ambush you with this, but was there a moment when you went, I just jumped clean past the pit, and I want to do that again?
Well, you mean like music?
Yeah, music, absolutely, or really anything.
Well, I mean, with music, sometimes you'll read where people will say those songs come out of the air or come out of something, and you are in a zone. I've read where sometimes Dylan says he calls it trance writing. And he has even sort of made reference that the songs that he wrote, during those civil rights years, that he doesn't know how he did it. He really doesn't know, and he doesn't think that he could do it again. It was a certain time. It was a burst of something, and like for me, that's happened, it does happen, I mean, I'm the songwriter for the group. So it never feels like work. I mean, sometimes it's like work when you're trying to finish something, but sometimes you just have to do something. So we had just finished, I mean, probably the most clean example of that is we'd finished an album after the follow-up that Augie Myers produced for us called La Conquistadora, which got, huge praise and for us it was not even validation. It's just nice, when it's cool when people hear your music when it's actually on the radio. So we had sort of some expectations with the second record, and we made it specifically with the West Side Horns with Al Gomez and Louis Bustos. I wanted, we were talking about that sound, so I had always imagined I want those two guys. I don't want overdubs. I don't want it to sound like a big. I want it to sound like they sound, that sax and that trumpet. And and I had the group agreed, and we were going to put them on the cover with us, and we did. They're like, this is them. I wanted to have that sound. So we finished that record, and we were very happy. Very rock and roll kind of record. But then on Christmas Day, I read a article in the San Antonio Express News about these beheadings in Mexico, about 12 heads in a bag left on the side of the road, and 8 of them belonged to soldiers. And so if I can pull out my guitar for a second, just for a split second.
Oh, would you please?
And so you're sitting there, and I'm reading this thing, and I thought, what the hell is this about? And this was, when we hear about the drug wars and stuff, but we were first starting to hear the numbers like 5,300 and all this stuff. So I'm just going to do a little bit of it, but it started like this. 12 heads in a bag, left on the side of the road, found in a country God no longer knows. 12 heads in a bag, I swear I read it yesterday, buried like the others on page 27A. And that was the beginning of a song that became corrido, 12 heads in a bag. So a corrido in Mexican music is a tale of tragedy, And so this was sort of a blend, I guess, of that sort of Bob Dylan sort of a style.
Oh, I can hear that,
with
sure.
the Mexican style of typically in a corrido, it will take you through the, with some artistic license, I guess, through a tale, of woe or murder or something. And it's really pretty amazing, But what's amazing is, we revere people like Bob Dylan, and like a song like that's inspiration. But, Flaco Jimenez's dad, Santiago Jimenez, Flaco and his brother, Santiago Jimenez, who are alive today, Santiago Jr. Flaco is a lifetime Grammy winner, 6-time Grammy winner. Both him and his brother are National Endowment of the Arts, recipients, the highest honor. That Heritage Fellowship Award is the highest honor a folk musician can get. Their dad, who invented the genre with Narciso Martinez that we call conjunto, which is essentially an accordion with a bajo sexto, a Mexican 12-string. It's not a guitar; it's tuned more like a bass, but it's used to give that kind of chunk that's in the music, wrote some amazing songs, and he never learned to read, and he never learned to write. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
And let me do just a snippet of a song. I'm going to sing a little bit of it in
Please
Spanish,
do.
and I'll explain. So in 1954, he worked as a custodian. So Santiago Jr. worked with his dad. They were literally mopping out a school. And on he said his dad liked to listen to the radio while he worked. And on the radio comes the story about the flood of Piedras Negras. In 54, Piedras Negras was almost wiped off the map. And that's the year that it wiped out the International Bridge in Laredo, just to tell you how high the water got on the Rio Grande. Randy. So, we covered a song of his, and it starts like this. Let me just do a little bit. And I'm going to sing it in Spanish, but I'll explain the story. It goes, En Piedras Negras, Coahuila, este desastre pasó. Quedó el pueblo destrozado, también mucha gente ahogada murió. El año 54, 3 de la tarde seguía. El agua del río Bravo a cada momento subía. Los radios de San Antonio cada momento anunciaban que en Piedras Negras, Coahuila, los niños chiquitos y hombres lloraban. So it's a story that in 1954, he's telling a story about the Rio Bravo and listening, and that they're sending food from San Antonio, and even women and men are crying, and it tells the whole story. And this is from a man that we might consider, I don't know, uneducated, undereducated, whatever. But he was definitely tapped into the universe for that. And I would, it's quite a few songs like that by him and other artists that are sometimes unlikely. So again, I would say he was in the zone because, while he was mopping, he told his son, go get my accordion. And he said, Santiago has told me the story. He said he noticed his dad mumbling while he was listening to the radio, and then he just turned to me, I've got a song. And so he wrote this song, and it was just, and he's got a lot of them like that. So again, you've had your flag, Lauri, you, myself, we had this moment of inspiration that, man, it can come out of the blue anytime. So for him, it was listening to the radio. For me, it was reading the newspaper. Sometimes it comes when your coach is yelling at you.
Sometimes
you get inspired real quick.
I don't know anybody who has gotten more out of his life than you have, and we're all the richer for it. And do me a favor, just keep putting that groove down right now. Our guest is the amazing Hector Saldana, journalist, musician, athlete. I'm sure he's going to work on a PhD in astrophysics in no time. So just keep playing here. We want to thank you for listening to Radically Rational, the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just put it down underneath this for sure. And we want to refer you to our website, radicallyrational.com. Remember, we're bringing facts back into fashion, making simple sanity sexy again. We're coming out of the pandemic. Nothing says that better than live music. Our thanks to Ruben V. and to Hector Saldana and to Lauri Pearson joining us from the People's Republic in Austin. Check out that website, and we will visit with you again on Radically Rational. Hector, just keep doing it.
I'm a longleaf pine. The story, it's in my grain. I'm a longleaf pine. The story, it's in my grain. Well, they chopped me all down, but I grew back again.